Welcome to the Windy City Podcast with Alex Shapiro and myself, Kenneth Davis. The Bears lose big in Baltimore 30-16. And it was exacerbated by the fact that Ravens future Hall of Fame quarterback Lamar Jackson was held out due to injury, and we'll get into those shenanigans a bit later during the
I
podcast.
thought you were going to say future Ravens Hall of Famer Snoop Huntley led the team to an incredible victory.
No, they were beaten by a perennial backup quarterback who they had released and brought back. A few years ago, subbing for Lamar, there was some thoughts that perhaps Tyler Huntley could become a player, and there's nothing wrong with being a career backup. The money is good. But speaking of quarterbacks, Caleb Williams had a bad game. 25 for 38, 285 yards passing, zero TDs, one interception, and a QB rating of 77. And I know if you didn't watch the game, you just heard those numbers. You're like, Ken, doesn't seem that bad. No, it was bad. All right. The perennial backup that we were just talking about, Snoop Huntley, totally outplayed the Bears starter. Huntley went 17 of 22 for 186 yards, one TD, no interceptions, and a QBR of, I'll say 117, but it was 116.9. All right.
Okay. Yeah, pretty good.
Pretty good. Alex, let's start off with the quarterback today to get this out of the way. Your thoughts on Caleb's performance this afternoon?
Yeah, I don't, it certainly wasn't good. I don't think it was horrible. I don't think it was horrible, especially when you listen to what Caleb Williams had to say a little bit after the game. And when you take a step back. But I think what was especially bad were bad decisions and bad plays in extremely key moments. Like early on in that game when the Bears were on script, and again,
Uh-huh.
caveat, they were on script. These are the plays that they are practicing. I thought he was on time again. He was making good throws in the rhythm of the offense. And then it's like, okay, they just couldn't punch the ball into the end zone, which is a huge thing that has become a huge thing for this team. Their inability to score in the red zone lately. So I was like, okay, not bad. Let's see if they can take advantage of some opportunities. But a lot of that stuff is erased by, again, like I said, the bad plays in big moments. And the two that really stand out to me, there are three I think on everybody's mind. I only want to talk about two as bad and one as one that needs a little bit of context. So bear with me here, Kenneth.
Hmm.
The one that I think was really, really the worst of the three is the interception on your own doorstep, in your own territory, where Ben Johnson says, I got to look at the tape and I'm not sure. I got to watch it again, but I think there was another place we could have thrown that ball. And then Caleb Williams says it was a fine read, but I made a bad throw. So it's either like poor execution or poor decision or potentially both. That interception when he's targeting Roma Dunze, he doesn't really lead him. It allows Ravens defender to undercut the football, and the Ravens have scored a touchdown 2 seconds later. The Bears were trying to make some sort of comeback happen, and that it didn't kill it for the Bears because obviously they still had an opportunity to tie that game, but it's just like, man, a huge squandered opportunity for the Bears to do something there, and for Caleb to have another fourth quarter comeback moment. He's had a few of those, so he squandered that. So that was bad throw and a bad moment. Second one was a good play until it wasn't a good play at the very end, and that is when the Bears were trying to make that comeback happen, and he recognizes man defense. He takes off. He gets a 22-yard run. Awesome, great job, Caleb Williams. But then instead of going out of bounds, he turned up field and slid. And by his own admission, Caleb Williams said, yeah, maybe I could have gotten out of bounds there. Probably could have. And it would have been nice to save a timeout there because, the Bears ended up having to burn a timeout. And he just basically said, I thought I could get more yards. I thought I could get more yards. So I turned the ball upfield. Ultimately, bad decision. Caleb Williams should get out of bounds there to save that timeout rather than getting the few more yards because, and this is the third play, the Bears had to burn that final timeout when Caleb Williams took his second intentional grounding. Right? So now that looks really bad. on the broadcast. It looked like, dude, you can't take that intentional grounding there. But he gave some interesting context after that game. Basically, Colson Loveland had a choice route there, and he and Colson Loveland simply weren't on the same page. He thought Colson Loveland was going to break out, so he threw again. That's a good anticipation ball that he's throwing out because Colson Loveland hasn't made his break right. You know, if Colson Loveland does break out, then that ball is right there for him. But Colson Loveland broke in. So that is, he said, like that's just going to come down to reps. That's just, I think the tight end is going to do one thing. The rookie tight end is going to do one thing. The rookie tight end did another thing. So that's not necessarily to blame Colson Loveland. It's not necessarily
Mhm.
to blame Caleb Williams. It's just them not being on the same page. I thought he was going out. He went in. So I threw the ball out. He went in. It turns into an intentional grounding. So again, like, yeah, there were some overthrown balls. Could he have hit Devin Duvernay for a touchdown? Yeah, totally. But like, he made a lot of good plays, but it was just like those really, really bad plays to me, Kenneth. Those bad plays in big moments to me is what like sank that game, sank that performance, and is what tips the needle for me to bad game, Caleb Williams. But
It's just,
it seems like you disagree.
yeah, I disagree. It was a pretty bad game. Like it was close to terrible. And I'm not a knee-jerk reaction type person. I'm someone who believes there is potential within Caleb. But one thing about the quarterback is situational football. And you mentioned that with he has to know how to make sure that they stop the clock. He has to know that because he's also the person at times that has to instruct other players to do what he's supposed to do. And this isn't his fault. The same thing happened with DJ on that nice one-handed catch where he could have gotten out of bounds and stopped the clock and he went for a couple more yards. That's not Caleb's fault. Now, on the two intentional groundings, and this is where it's getting ridiculous. All right. Now, I will say this. I'm not a quarterback under that type of pressure, right? And sometimes the blitz can be coming or the pressure can be coming at you so hot that you're just trying to not take a sack to lose yards, even though intentional grounding, you're losing yards. But you still like I saw Joe Flacco in the Browns game today under pressure.
The
And he
Bengals game?
threw, yes, I meant to say thank you in the Bengals game.
He's
He
making the tour
threw,
of the AFC
yeah,
North
he's
right
all
now.
over the AFC North. And he threw this rainbow, right? Across his body over to the left. I think there's like on the right hash. He threw it over to the left sideline, right? And to get rid of the ball and avoid intentional grounding. And again, we're talking about somebody that's been in the NFL since leather helmets and Joe Flacco. Of course, I'm joking, but you get what that's how long Joe Flacco. I'm as old as Joe Flacco, if not old. I'm older than Joe Flacco, which I'm old, a young man, but you get what I'm trying to say. Caleb has to grow in doing that, Alex. But I don't think like you said there were a lot of good plays. Now, okay, 2 minute S drill, like towards the end of the game, where the other team may be in some type of prevent, some type of zone. They're gonna leave windows open for you just to make sure that you don't get out of bounds, and they can perhaps get the ball so they can keep running time off the clock, get it back in their hands, and then they thought they were going to run time off the clock, not score again. That I think was the initial goal of the Baltimore Ravens, but it was like, hey, we're down here. We may as well go ahead and punch this in, right? So you sit there and he plays well at what we knew he played well, and that's the Sandlot-esque type stylings, which again, don't take it away. You use him in bootleg, moving around in the pocket. You mentioned the first 15 scripted plays. At some point, clearly, to win football games, you have to be able to win within structure after you run through those plays. The Bears begin to have become, and they've been like this, stagnant. And for me, I feel like we contextually were looking at two different games because I felt that the game was over. And I'm like, man, why do I feel this game is over and it's like 13-6, right?
Yeah.
But that's just how bad the Bears offense was playing and the Bears defense. And again, you never know it could happen, but it seemed like this wasn't going to be one of those turnover plenty games that we've seen them have so far this season. And that's the defense. The defense played decent. I mean, to give 30 to a backup, like if they would have got out there with only giving up 20 something odd points, I would have been like, you to a degree, your defense is going to get smacked a little bit. It's on you to be able. The Bears have been scoring what 26 or more points a game. It's on you to get to that 26, as you guys would have won the game. So that again falls on Caleb. It also falls on the play call. Now I can't. I have to watch some tape, and it's still not going to allow me to know what the calls were that Ben Johnson was putting out there. But still, some of it goes to the play call, but it really gets to your quarterback making dumbass plays, locking in on his favorite receiver, which a lot of quarterbacks do. Because to a degree, that pass to Rome, and you were talking about he didn't lead him, he was double covered in one of the worst ways. But not the worst way, because the NFL is small pocket windows that you're passing into. So, there are going to be passes where hopefully not tripled, but doubled, that you have to hit your guy or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But at that point, it wasn't to me a good pass. Again, Caleb said it was whatever.
Said it
To
was
me,
good read,
today's
bad pass. Good read, bad
thank
pass.
you, thank you
Yeah,
for correcting me.
sure.
To me, this was a frustrating game because it was a give me in a way, but it's also a lesson. One of the things that I was talking to some guys this week on a podcast, and I was saying that the Bears really hadn't beaten anybody when you really think about it, except the Cowboys, because people at that point thought the Cowboys were worse than what they've been so far. But most of the teams the Bears have beaten either have been bad or got worse after the Bears played them, like the Raiders or whatever, right? But you look at the Lions, you look at Minnesota, and you look at Baltimore, and they have culture. Now, Baltimore and the Lions have championship contending culture. Like, that's their plan. This was a game that everyone was like, well, if Baltimore loses, they're out of the playoffs. And they didn't even, and again, he may have not been available. They didn't even use their starter, which is a phenomenal weapon in Lamar Jackson. They ran a backup out there and drummed the Bears today, which just lets you know how bad of a game it was. If I told you last week that you were going to get Ty Huntley, right?
Yeah. I'm like, it's going to be 6 takeaways, not 4.
Right. Like what would the score, just before I send it back to you? What would your prediction on the score would have been last week after the game, after the Bears victory versus the Saints, if you knew Lamar Jackson definitely wasn't coming back, and that 1-5 team was going to face a hot, as you know what, Bears team coming off another victory?
Knowing that the Ravens defense is bad, but also knowing that the Ravens were coming off of a bye, and Derrick Henry like sounded very, very motivated. So I wrote about this a little bit in my predictions. It's like, hey, the Ravens are coming off a bye. Their defense is not very good, but the Bears' run defense has not been very good this year, except for a few games. And Derrick Henry sounds motivated. I predicted when I thought it was Lamar Jackson. When I thought it was Lamar Jackson, I believe I had the Ravens winning by 4. If I had
Mm-hmm.
known all along that Huntley wasn't going to play, I probably would have predicted the Bears to win by 7. I
Yeah.
don't think it would have been a blowout, but like I probably would have predicted maybe Bears win, 30, whatever, 31-21 or something like that. 31-24 to make it 7, like I said. Because I probably would have thought like, okay, Derrick Henry has a good game, but Tyler Huntley, who is a dude who has turned the ball over a lot in his career, like this dude puts the ball on the ground a lot, throws interceptions, doesn't throw touchdowns. It's like, okay, so the Bears get 5 takeaways this time. And maybe the offense still isn't that good, but the Ravens defense is bad too. Long story short, that's a long-winded way of saying I probably would have had the Bears by a touchdown.
And the Bear, look, you mentioned the run defense. The run defense really wasn't bad
Wasn't
today.
that bad.
You had a situation where you had a mobile quarterback that took advantage of the gaps. That happens. I can't even get mad at you. Looking at it right now, uh, Derrick Henry had 71 yards on 21 attempts. The Bear
Right.
and we all know that. Okay, so the narrative is that perhaps Father Time has caught Derrick Henry. All right,
Nah.
I'm not. I'm with you. I'm with you. But point being, Derrick Henry was basically stifled by the Bears defense. He had a long of 10 for he had 71 yards. He was 3.4 yards per rush. All right. That's pretty good for Derrick Henry when you're anticipating them leaning on him in the run game. Tyrone Huntley is what messed them up
And
with
Keaton Mitchell.
120.
Also, shout out Keaton
I was
Mitchell.
about to get I was about to get to Keenan
Okay,
Mitchell. I was
okay,
about to
okay,
this is
okay,
the
okay. I'm
point where I was
sorry.
going to get to them. So Tyrone Huntley had 53 yards, but he had a long of 30 yards. It was 29, right? So he got most of that on one rush. Then, as he just mentioned with Keaton Mitchell had 43 yards, but he had 25 on one rush. All right, and that's the problem that bit your butt. There were some problems on the back end and with the linebackers today, and I'm not dissing them because they've been playing well for the most part. But this is the one thing you alluded to, a banged up defense on Baltimore, right? Like that, Baltimore has been hampered, and the fact that the banged up defense and one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL is out, and the Bears got their asses kicked. To me, and I hope people don't take this as a negative way because I know some fans are just hope springs eternal. And I'm not saying the season is over, but this was a wake up call.
Yeah.
Like the Bears have been cruising in a good way. You have to win the games that's on your schedule. They have won. Their record is still better than a lot of us anticipated at this point in the season. Look, the losses that the Bears have. These were the losses that if I gave you the first 7 games, you probably would have had the losses that are on there. Maybe the Minnesota game or whatever, but it would have been something like that. So it's not again the end of the world, Alex. But for me, this game, as someone who roots for Caleb Williams to succeed, to hopefully move this team and move this rookie coach in a positive direction, this was a really frustrating game for someone who believes that Caleb can do it at one point. I've said this, and we've said this since we've reformed under center, the Windy City podcast. Since we've said this, I think it's going to take a minute for him, and I look towards the end of the season, and now I look more towards the off season because I think there's some things, hopefully, that Ben Johnson has to work out of this kid. Like there's too many head scratching moments for a young man who has this skill set and seems smart enough, but is perhaps, I don't want to say he's taking shortcuts. Because I think sometimes when you're smart, it's easy to take shortcuts because you can cover up mess a lot. Being someone who thinks they're smart, I think sometimes I can take a shortcut because I think I can figure this out. And sometimes the long way is always the best way. And that's, again, to me, the head scratching, the intentional grounding. And I want to say this too on the Colston Loveland situation. Regardless of which way you thought he was going, and I know, as you pointed out, anticipation, and we know most great quarterbacks, that's what you're looking for. Some quarterbacks have to be great anticipation quarterbacks because they don't have the arm strength, so they have to get the ball out early. That's not Caleb's issue. Regardless of Caleb's arm strength, you still need to be a passer that's throwing the ball before a receiver gets open so that the play can matriculate properly. But the point was you had to still get rid of the ball. Like, and like at some point in the game is this crucial, and I get what you're saying. You can't even, you already threw an intentional grounding. You can't, so it should be on your mind at this point. Yeah, I know he's supposed to break there, but and not sit there and clip another drive. Like that's the problem. He's ending series, Alex. Like that's when your quarterback is the reason that the series isn't continuing. You pointed out the reason that you're not punching it in. Alex and I are playing each other in fantasy today,
We
right?
are.
Yeah, I picked up the Bears defense because I expect no, and the worst part, I had the Texans defense, right?
Oh no. Oh
Yeah.
no, Kenneth.
Yeah, I had the Texans defense, right? Don't know what they ended up with, but last time I checked, they had 22 points today. All right. And I'm like, you know what though? The Bears are just stealing the ball, right? I'm like, Ty Huntley. When I saw yesterday Lamar was out, I said, man, let me pick. And I had the Bears defense last week. I said, let me pick this Bears defense up real quick, right? Now, mind you, also, I'm like, I know Caleb is not gonna punch that ball in for my kicker, streaming kickers. Like, let me go get
Pyro.
Santos. Like, let me bring Cairo in because I know. Look, I'm like, I know they're not gonna be able to score the ball because they haven't been able to score the ball. And it's emblematic of how this season has gone so far, Alex.
Yeah, no, it is. And here's right. You're right. We're probably not talking about the intentional grounding that puts them out of field goal range. We're not talking about these little minutia things. If the Bears simply execute in the red zone, you know?
Yep.
And this is something that they've done all year where they get out to these great hot starts and they just can't score. and they're settling for field goals. And what does that allow teams to do? It allows teams like the New Orleans Saints, like the Las Vegas Raiders, not good football teams, to hang around and make things interesting when it probably should be game over much earlier, right? And then the Bears have to have their heroics and have their, big moments late in games to win, which is still good, right? It's good that they are doing those things, but it should not be getting to that point. And that's the same thing today. This is a game that could have easily been 14-0 in the first quarter.
Hmm.
And that feels a whole lot different than 6-0 because what happens? All the Ravens need is one good drive. And all of a sudden
Right.
they're winning that football game. And that was it. That was it. It felt like the Ravens were like, okay, we took their best punch. We did the bend, don't break thing. Let's settle in. We're in control now. And we can just cruise. And that's what they did. Once they kind of settled in, got that control, the Bears had no response. But if it's 14-0, it just feels and looks a lot different. The Ravens got to call a game differently. The Bears can call their game differently. DeAndre Swift played phenomenally. And I don't know if he was on some sort of pitch count because he was dealing with an injury. He was banged up. So we saw a lot more Kyle Monungai. We saw DJ Moore playing running back that we've seen to a degree. But DeAndre Swift, when he was in there, was once again effective. But I think he ended the game with just 13 touches, just 11 carries and 2 receptions, but did pretty darn well when he touched the football. If you're out to a 14-0 lead and you still give up that touchdown and you're up 7 in the second half, you can call the game a little bit differently because all of a sudden now you're not playing from behind trying to get that touchdown to take the lead or kick that field goal to make it a 1-point game. Now you're looking to run clock, extend lead. The third quarter plays differently. Everything plays differently. So that's where the red zone stuff is so important, especially in those games. And then at the end of the game, and to his credit, Ben Johnson took accountability for it as well. Like, what's the play calling in that final series with the goal to go? The Caleb Williams sneak that maybe got in, that didn't get in, that not now you're just scrambling because you have no timeouts and it's fourth down. It's like, wait, we've got to get a great fourth down call in here because it's fourth down, but wait, clock is ticking off and we're just like, what's going on? And you end up with a jumbled mess because it's a jumbled mess. So Ben Johnson, could his play calling be better in some situations? Yeah, probably, certainly in that situation. But Bears execution also needs to be better. This to me was just a game where everybody needed to be better. And special teams. I mean, you want to talk about like silly mistakes, just absolute silly pre-snap procedural stuff. So we've talked about a lot that has plagued the Bears. How about some pre-snap procedural stuff? Once again, false starts, bad. And then
Lead the
Tory Taylor,
league.
huh?
They lead the league in false starts.
Bad news. You don't want to lead the
That's
league in
terrible.
that. That's
That's
terrible.
terrible. That's again another way that you're hamstringing drives
Yeah.
by false starts. Please continue.
But yeah, I mean, here's a scenario where the Bears have already been flagged for an illegal formation because some guy's hat wasn't at the center's belt line, right? That should happen once. Hey, you got to make sure your helmet is covering the center's belt line. This cannot happen again, right? Bears don't get it corrected. The Bears have a great punt. Tory Taylor has kind of struggled. That punt
Oh
coverage
my
team
goodness.
has
On
kind
the
of
one.
struggled. And they finally do it. He and Jonathan Owens finally do it. They have him pinned on the 1-yard line. This is an opportunity for the defense to get a stop, keep him backed up, flip the field, yada, yada, yada. But DeMarco Jackson's helmet isn't at the center's belt line. So the Bears are pushed back. They have to kick the ball again. And Tory Taylor could not reproduce that kick. Bad punt. Kicks it out of bounds at the 22-yard line. Just simply not what you want in that situation. And what do the Ravens do? They take advantage. They march down the field and they fizzle out, ended up kicking a field goal, right? That's what extended that lead right before halftime. They get that field goal. Those 21 yards, right, in the box score goes down as a 5-yard penalty. That's a 21-yard penalty, really. And instead of the Bears defense getting the opportunity to back them up, and if they have that exact same drive, they're out of field goal range. They're out of field goal range. Instead, they get those 21 yards, and it ends in a chip shot field goal for their guy. So just like, man, pre-snap issues, alignment issues. This is like even before you're executing a play. This is before you executed the play very well, but the pre-snap stuff, it's the same stuff that's happening over and over, but this time they don't have the four takeaways. This time they don't have the heroics, right? They had been able to overcome all of those penalties that have been an issue. But you know what? Now that they don't have the four takeaways, what happens? You lose by multiple scores because you don't have those huge splash plays to, as you said, cover it up.
11 penalties. This is one of the most, especially for halfway through the season, penalized Bears teams that we've seen in years. And that's on coaching. That part. That's a coaching thing. That's a culture thing. And hopefully it goes away. But we've seen coaches come in, and one of the first things they do is make sure the team isn't heavily penalized. That you mentioned the bad play calling by Ben Johnson at the end of the game. That situation, you already have to send them in with what the fourth down play may be because there's no time left on the clock. There has to be, if hey, we're running this, and if this doesn't work, we're running that. Like that's just and I just want to some of the things you said because I think you were spot on when you're talking about the tenor of the game. If they had punched in the game in the first quarter and we're up 14, but if you didn't watch the game for the majority of the game into the third quarter, it was 6-10, 6-13.
Yeah.
You're a touchdown away from being in the lead. So it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't even a situation where it caused you to become a one-trick passing pony. And that to me, and I'll say this about Ben Johnson, there has to be, and I don't know where Caleb ends and Ben Johnson begins in this fault. There has to be more layups. The Bears have too many weapons to not get players the ball in space. There's a difference when all you had on the edges was DJ Moore and Cole Kmet, who is a combo tight end, but not looked at as a pass catcher. He can pass catch, but you're not looking at him as a threat. Like, oh my God, they got Cole Kmet out here. Not a knock on Cole, but now you have Rome Dunze, right? You have Luther Burden. You
Concussed.
have
They got him the ball once
true.
and he got concussed.
They got him the ball once. You mentioned Swift. You have Swift, who again, I love the fact that you're using him as a power back, but take advantage of the fact that he's a West Coast back and put him out there and get him the ball. There's too many layups that they're not getting to consistently keep moving the ball to make the game easier for them. You know what I'm saying? Like
Mm-hmm.
the three and outs. It's that's where it's frustrating. I'm not out on this team. I'm a huge Ben Johnson guy. I believe out of anything, I believe right now, right or wrong, in Ben Johnson. I do. And I believe that this will improve. But man, Caleb today, just looking at some of my text threads, man, I couldn't even say anything. You know what I mean? I could say that he was messing up and agree with those thoughts, but there's no defense when you compound it game after game with similar mistakes. Like
Yeah.
since he's entered the NFL, he has had terrible issues with getting rid of the ball. I will say at the beginning of the game, and I wrote it down in my notes. At the beginning, the first couple of drives did a great job of it's not open. Let me get rid of the ball. But and the problem is it's not that he's playing hero ball. He's playing a fashion of ball that's going to compromise winning when he's holding on to the ball in that manner. Yeah. So Alex, your thoughts on the defensive side of the ball? I'll say this. I'll say this. Baltimore pulled a fast one. Regardless, the defense has to be prepared. And Tyrone Huntley is a similar vein quarterback to Lamar Jackson compared to Cooper Rush or whatever,
Yeah.
which doesn't make sense when you have a running quarterback to put in a quarterback that's not mobile as the backup. It throws the system off. But going from knowing the tendencies of Lamar Jackson all week,
Mm-hmm.
preparing for that, and then knowing at the end on Saturday, so
Yeah.
practice is over. Just a walkthrough, if that. that you're playing a different quarterback. That's some shenanigans. And with gambling, you're messing around with people's bread also.
Yep.
But Dennis Allen took an L defensively. One, and we said this, they weren't going to be able to get as many turnovers, but you thought that there wasn't going to be the situational wins that
Yeah.
kept Baltimore's offense on the field and eventually scoring.
I'm glad you mentioned that actually, Kenneth, because they did kind of pull a fast one. And for fans who aren't really aware of what happened, so Lamar Jackson participated as a limited participant on Wednesday, limited participant on Thursday, and then on Friday, it seemed like he was going to be limited, but then he was full. But then the day after, they retroactively made him limited, where it's like, wait, how do you mess up how he participated in practice?
Mhm.
Right? Like what he did in practice. You know if he was full or you know if he was limited. So like either somebody made a bad mistake or what's going on there. You don't see that very often. A participation amount changing the day after. So they were like, "Hey, by the way, he was actually limited. And hey, by the way, typically when we rule guys out on Friday, and sometimes, we make game time designations, but guess what? On Saturday, now we're ruling Lamar Jackson out. A lot of players are ruled out on Friday, and then sometimes they'll let him go a few days. So like that part is, I guess, a little bit more understandable if you want to give him an extra day. But typically that designation would have been made on Sunday before the game if he's a true game time decision. So there was some shenanigans there with Lamar Jackson's participation, but no matter, yes, could the Bears have prepared differently and maybe like dialed up some more aggressive things if they knew Huntley was going to be the QB all week long? Maybe, but at the end of the day, like you got to make stops. You can't let this guy drive down the field, and too many times they just could not do that. Right after the first 3-and-out, the Ravens went 12 yards, 80 or 12 plays, 82 yards, touchdown. Next possession, 12 yards, 12 plays, 56 yards, field goal. 8 plays, 56 yards, field goal. 10 plays, 71 yards, field goal. Then finally they get a punt, 5 plays, 17 yards, punt. And then the next one was after the interception. So it was only 2 plays, but touchdown. Then 9 plays, 56 yards, touchdown. So whether or not you are getting the takeaways, like you gotta find a way to make a stop somewhere in there. And they simply could not make the stop. And again, we just got done saying they did a pretty good job against Derrick Henry. Like, did Derrick Henry still get his 2 scores and did he still get his yards and make his big plays? Yes, he absolutely did. But like if he's not getting 4 or 5 yards a clip, you would imagine that you could stop Ty Huntley. And at a certain point,
Mhm.
you do need to simply stop Ty Huntley. I don't care about any shenanigans that the Ravens pulled. That is just way too many long drives that the Bears defense gave up, like period, point blank.
And sometimes you got to dial the blitzes up too. Once you saw that you weren't getting to him, you need to stop what was taking place. Yeah, it wasn't enough pressure up front. Tyrone Huntley had one of the best games of his career when it mattered because they needed this game. And also, it kind of speaks to the disrespect because I feel like they were like, I think we may be able to beat the Bears, and we don't need you this week, referring to Lamar Jackson, in my opinion. Like, we got a short week. Why not come back on Thursday? All right, fresher. We think we may be able to pull this one off without you, which is just like in the face of the same. And they did. Shout out to
They
them
did.
for being the team that can pull off. But that's shenanigans, and even more when it comes to honesty and gambling.
Yeah.
People
Yeah.
lost money on that situation because people thought Lamar Jackson were going to play, and that's unfair to people that are using their hard-earned cash to try to win some extra coin.
I wonder how many people lost more money because as soon as they saw it's Huntley
Oh yeah,
and
you're
the line
totally
moved, they're like,
right.
"Oh,
You're
Bears, Bears,
totally
Bears,
right. You're
Bears!"
totally right.
Everybody's losing
Oh,
money.
everybody left and right. Vegas is just all these collecting in a week where gambling has been ever present.
Ugh, yeesh.
Anything else before we get up out of here as far as the game?
Nah, I think let's turn it over to extra points.
All right, so no game balls.
No game balls.
All right, what's your extra point?
Okay, my extra point is gonna be about a wonderful time I had in Texas this weekend at my buddy's wedding. And just overall, I had a nice time. I was in and out, like got there late Friday, left at 8 a.m. on Sunday to make it back in time for the Bears game. So I was not there long, but had a very nice time. Really enjoyed Terry Black's beef ribs. Went there for breakfast on Saturday because I had to be ready for this wedding at 1. I'm like, okay, I got to do a Texas thing. I'm getting Terry Black's barbecue and
What'd you get?
the beef rib. Outrageous. A huge
Mm.
dinosaur bone. Never had anything like it. This is all preamble. What I really, really want to talk about, the part of Texas culture that I feel I'm now going to bring home to Chicago because I was a groomsman at this wedding is I think I'm a bolo tie guy now. So the groom is like, okay, yo, for my groomsman gift, I'm gonna give you all bolo ties, and that's what we're gonna wear. Like, we're gonna wear black suits and we're gonna wear bolo ties, and we're gonna be like proper Texas gentlemen. And I was like, all right, man, whatever you want. I was open to it. And then I put that sucker on and I looked in the mirror and I was like, damn, I think I look good. I think this is kind of a look. So just like last week, Kenneth was like, hey, you heard it here first. Caleb Williams might be Jake Plummer, maybe we'll see. You heard it here first. When bolo ties are a thing in the city of Chicago,
It's Alex.
when everybody's wearing bolo ties out in River North. No, I brought it here. No, know that I brought it here because it's I kind of love it. So Texas, I had a great time. It was wonderful. Bolo ties are cool. Maybe I need to get cowboy boots next, but Austin, keep it up. Keep up the good work, Austin. I had a ton of fun. So thank you. Thank you to the great state of Texas and the great city of Austin for showing me a good time in like 26 hours.
Great. And I'm happy for you and that you had a good time and congratulations to the couple on their wedding and moving forward. Now also that was just one because the dino ribs are so big. It's only that was only one rib, I take it.
One rib cost me $55.
Damn.
Worth it though.
One
Man,
rib.
one rib. Dude, it was like almost 2 pounds. The rib was damn near 2 pounds. Um, the food was phenomenal. I would 1000% do it again.
On your scale of your favorite ribs, where would you place it?
Okay, so I don't eat pork.
I
So
was about to say, that's
that
really
takes
what
a
the reason
lot of
why I'm
ribs out.
asking you.
That takes a
Like,
lot of
right.
ribs out of the occasion. But I have had beef ribs here in
Mm.
Chicago. You know, there are places that do it. I've made beef ribs at home. They're actually phenomenally easy to make. You know, you throw some sauce on them, you put them in the oven. They're delicious. Costco. I get my beef ribs at Costco, and they're pretty solid. This was outrageous though, man. The bark they had on it, whatever rub they're putting on it, the way that they had the fat rendered. I mean, it was almost sensual to be quite
I love
honest.
it. I love it.
I
I
was
love it.
like, if I'm being truthful, it was a meat experience. So I would 1000% do the beef rib. So what I did is I had the beef rib, I got cornbread and I got mac and cheese. And I did get a little brisket too. Brisket was underwhelming.
Mm.
Brisket,
Mac and cheese.
the mac and cheese was very good. The mac and cheese was very good. The cornbread was very good. I don't think I need to get brisket again. I think I'd pass on the brisket next time I'm
Understandable.
there.
Hey, everyone can't be great at everything. So maybe that the ribs are their thing. And we know beef in Texas is big business until they start importing it from Argentina.
Oh,
All right.
damn.
My extra point, sticking with points, and we kind of talked about it earlier with the shenanigans and how Lamar Jackson's health or lack thereof may have affected wagers that took place.
Hmm.
Listen, unless you're living under a rock, I think you've seen some of the stuff what's happened with some NBA coaches and players in Chauncey Billups, coach, probably former coach of the Portland Trailblazers at some point. Damon Jones, a former player and coach, and Terry Rozier, a player. Man, listen, that gambling crack is a different type of pull, man. I know you like to put a coin or two here, and that's, I mean, again, so let me separate these two things. There's difference from gambling compared to getting connected to nefarious actions, right? But the problem is sometimes gambling can lead you to nefarious actions, and also it's a societal thing where everything being open to everybody isn't a good thing. Back in the days where you didn't have a prop bet on Terry Rozier's assist because the bookie wasn't going to give me that, they're going to give me a wager on that.
Yeah.
Compared to it went from I could do it offshore to now I could do it on any of these apps from whatever platform. It's not healthy. And I'm not dissing it. You're a grown up, but I'll say this now as I'm giving a PSA here. My son asked me was it this school year? I don't know if it was the beginning of the school year or last school year. He asked, can he get on gambling apps because his friends are on them, right? And I can hear him sometimes talking to his friends about it. And I laughed in his face and was like, that's one of the strongest drugs possible. There's no way I'm gonna let you start getting high off of gambling and like acting like it's cool because you're gonna be chasing money. Me personally, if I go to a casino, I'll play the slots. I'll play some 21. I don't think gambling is evil, but the problem is addiction. And the problem is chasing money. So if you have a gambling problem, seek out some help. You just got to put it down. But the fact that the mafia, Chauncey Billup is, regardless of whatever happens, even if he's found in his actions have besmirched his name and it will never be as clean as what it was. Someone who's been held in high regard because of either you're innocent but connections perhaps, and this is, I'm alleging this, right? Alleged connections put you in this situation. Jamin Jones has always been an idiot. He just has. I don't care. And the Terry Rozier, I want to know when 30 for 30 comes out, did like how many teams had an idea? Like, does this go back to his Celtic days where it was like, yeah, he take himself out? Then it made me think about trainers in these leagues and how they're just like, yeah, he's on that, he's gambling again because he's not hurt, but you take yourself out. Like, it's just so funny to see the depths that this goes, particularly for someone who's not a big gambler. So I'm naive to some of this
Or how
stuff,
about the
but it's
depths of someone who
interesting,
makes millions of dollars, who
right?
is
And
paid, their salary is
yeah, yeah.
millions of dollars.
But see, but okay, but remember what they used to tell us. If we pay them a lot of money, that would deter them from gambling because they're making so much money. That's what they used to say for anybody that's young. Back in the days, that's what they used to say. And it just shows you the underbelly of sports. If we're really being honest, this isn't just an NBA thing. This is a sports thing. This is a college thing now with the NCAA allowing college players to bet on the pros and how that connection with pros and college players will have more stuff like this
Yeah,
coming
like
down the
your
line.
former roommate who's a rookie now.
Right. Hey, who's playing? Hey, who's healthy on your team? Who's healthy on your team?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
So it's just, well, that was my extra point. Try to get the points, but also try not to take your ass to jail trying to get the points. So that's my extra point for
yeah.
this episode.
Gambling should probably be illegal again. This is I enjoy sports gambling. I enjoy putting a few dollars on Sunday night football and raising the stakes for myself a little bit. It only takes a couple $2-3 to make it a little bit more interesting for me. That said, it should probably be illegal again.
Probably so. All right. For Alex Shapiro, I am Kenneth Davis. Make sure you tune in next week when we discuss the Bears versus the Bengals. All right. The Flacco Bowl. Not the bowl, but the Flacco game. We'll see what he does to the Bears. Hopefully the Bears can pull off a victory, even though Joe Flacco has been connecting with those weapons. I saw a bomb to T. Higgins today in the highlights. So we'll be there. Make sure you follow the Windy City Podcast. Alex will be breaking down sports throughout all Chicago sports during the week. So make sure you plug in with that. Ask questions. Ask us any questions down here about anything you want to think when it comes to football or our extra points or anything in general. We're always here to talk and chat. And we always appreciate you taking a little bit of time on the Windy City Podcast for us to dice up Bears, win or loss, even though unfortunately today it was a loss.